Sometimes I think I should be saying a joke, like the second half of a joke when we go live. So they'd be like, what are we missing?
Wait, what just happened?
We are live, everybody. So we're waiting for people to show up. So Sierra, first one was a disaster, but maybe you know, maybe you don't. We always wait until there's at least 5 people. Then we introduce ourselves and I'll introduce the show. So, but you're free to, talk. Just you cannot introduce yourself. So you can't say your own name. It's the only rule.
Sierra, we can say your name.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't say yours.
I can say it as much as I want, but you can't because we have not started the show. This is completely preamble. I hope Kayla shows up to moderate this room because sometimes it gets rowdy. I feel like tonight it just might.
It's funny. There was, I was looking in one of the events on the Facebook page, and there was some random person that was interested in one of the events, and I was like, "Who is this?" And they had no profile picture. They had a really weird name. I'm like, "Is this like a bot or something?"
I think so. So here we go. Watch out, rowdy posters. We got Kayla in the building.
Mm-hmm. Kayla.
Yeah. So here's one of the weird things that I found out. Like when our show was a thing 2 years ago, apparently a bunch of like European sites like stole all the episodes, and still have them hosted on their sites. So if you live in Greece, or I think my dad was finding them in Russia and in Germany, still available in European countries.
That's crazy.
So you don't have to be a Patreon to get to get access to our old catalog. You just have to find that German site
and possibly get a virus.
Possibly, but the Germans have never done anything shifty, so I wouldn't worry about it.
There's 5 people.
Okay, so what? You said that, and now it's back to 4. So we can go back to relaxing and just dishing. What's work like, Sierra?
Ridiculous. I'm so busy. But I have 3 jobs right now.
That's crazy. Hi, Mom.
It is weird that either this crisis has either knocked you out completely or made you 3 times as busy.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I expected completely to get shit canned. Just because that's usually what happens. Like when the tables turn, it's like, but this one, not so bad.
Kayla says between German back catalogs and the old site having Chinese adult entertainment, FFOP is international.
Oh, we've always had our fingers in the pies of many countries. China was the most surprising one. So if you don't know the story, Sierra, our old episode, our old website used to be fistfulofpodcast.com. But I let it lapse, and almost a minute later, a Chinese sex site bought it up and immediately threw all their shit on it. Because I got nostalgic one day, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna visit the old domain," and it was just floor to ceiling Chinese sex shit. And I'm like, "Oh well, that's probably what our legacy should be."
That's fine.
And if nothing else, when you hit the translate button, because it's all in Chinese, it's a funny read. I think it's worth it. So, also, before we go into the show 9 hours and I find out the audio is bad, can someone confirm that this sounds good? I know I ask that every show.
And don't just say it does.
But nobody ever tells me the truth. So, Sierra, what else is going on? 3 jobs. Give me one of them. Give me the easiest one. Give me that one first.
The easiest one?
Yeah, like I'm sure because they're not all equally difficult, surely. Give me the easiest one that you can just be like, that's that one? Nah.
Well, 2 of them are the same. So one of the home health agencies.
This is, I feel like this is cheating. If
cheating.
2 of them are the same.
I'm just racking it in as much as I can. Like,
listen, if you have an apple and 2 oranges, I'm sure you can say that you have 3 fruits, but
exactly.
Full disclosure, something's fishy here, but you're on notice, Sierra. Let's keep going.
One of them doesn't give me very many patients, so that's nice. But I don't know. It's hard to say which one's easier right now because therapy.
But they're all pretty much the same thing. So
well, 2 of them are home health and one is therapists. So yeah. I've taken on a lot of new clients.
By the sound of it, then one would be led to believe that like the home health stuff would be more physical labor intensive, and the therapist is obviously not. or is that a something I am inferring that you are not implying?
Yeah, I wouldn't say any of it's physical
Mm.
labor unless you count all the driving that I do.
Okay, so home health, explain that to me. Because like therapy, I get
Yeah.
therapy 100%, but home health, is it the same thing just on the road? Is it the road show, vaudevillian style therapy?
So it's still elderly people like when I was at the SNF. So
Mhm.
connecting them with the same kind of resources that I did there, it's just slower pace, not so much nonsense like when you're in a facility. So just getting them
Mhm.
caregivers or even getting them therapy sometimes.
All right. Well, I feel like, maybe this is just me, but I feel like the therapy side would be more like intellectually draining, whereas like,
Mhm.
everything else is more logistics.
Absolutely.
And depending on who you are, like, I don't know, I feel like if I think too hard, I get tired. But like if I have to haul bricks or whatever, it's like,
yeah.
like you burn so many calories with your mind. I can only imagine like if so that for me anyway, from my point of view, I'm lazy. So I go path of least resistance. If I have to put forth physical activity, but not have to think too much, I'll do it.
Yeah. I hear you.
Let's see. Someone in the typing square needs a therapist.
Hey.
Oh man. So let's see what else. We're so close, and usually, like, I feel like Fridays, most people are just like, I'm gonna crash.
Yeah, it's been a long week. I almost
It
didn't
has
set my
been a long
alarm
week.
today, but then I did because I felt like I needed to work for an hour without Elliot running around.
Sometimes that's the thing. If you can tell where you are in life, where you view your job, because if you're like, I can't wait to get to work because it's quiet there, I know exactly where you are.
Relatable.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Like I've said this before, and I'll say it again. 2020 has been, everything's out the window. Everything's weird. Everything's strange. So it's hard to be like, what? Isn't that a weird situation? Well, no, it's not really, because look at everything else that's going around.
There are no rules at this point.
Seriously.
But it's, I don't know. It's harder. It's getting harder and harder for people to ignore it. Maybe.
That's true.
We'll see what happens, guys. We've got 5 viewers as of right now. So, you know how we're going to do it. Krista, let's hear that intro. We'll start the show off proper.
You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Dave, and this is Hangout and True Crime Part 2. Where's Part 1, USA? Or you ask? Maybe don't ask is what I'm getting at. Don't ask. This is Part 2. It's kind of like Leonard Part 6. There was no 1 through 5. So, thanks for showing up, everybody. This is obviously Hangout and True Crime. Let me introduce you to my guest. You may remember her from an episode that may not exist. Sierra's back on the show. Thank you for coming back on, Sierra.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
So, true crime, one of my favorite subjects because it's literally endless, and everything about it by its very nature is weird. So that being said, we're not going to be doing trivia because it's one of those topics that is way too wide and deep.
Yeah, that was rough the last time.
True crime trivia is like fishing in the ocean. You might catch something, but it might not be the thing you're looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to jaw jack about our favorite true crimes and shit. But before we do that, as our listeners and viewers, I got to remember to say viewers when the camera's on. As our viewers know, I have a very interesting, psychological profile that I have, not to brag, but I think it's perfect. So I call it the FFOP 5. What I'm going to do is ask you these 5 questions probe you psychologically, which will then dictate how I interact with you for the rest of our lives, essentially.
How the tables have turned.
No pressure, but this is very important. Hashtag also Flamingo Friday, everybody. I always forget that. There's the flamingo. There's Trung. He's got some batteries.
Yep.
Wearing flamingos, not wearing my flamingo socks, because from the waist down, it is a party. From waist up, it is work. I am the mullet of outfits right now. So, Sierra, very important. Are you ready?
No.
That's too bad, because that was not the first question. First question is, what is something that you are into that most people aren't? Like, what is something you can talk about and bore somebody else to death about that maybe, I don't want to influence your answer, but something that, like, if you were to walk up to someone you knew and be like, you know what I really love? And they go, huh? Something like that.
Outside of true crime, because that's kind of it.
True crime, outside of the obvious, like I always give. I've got a few examples. Like, I have no interest in being involved in 80s technology, but I love watching videos about 80s technology. I could talk to you about the Commodore 64, about all the Apple stuff from the 70s to the 80s. Never touched a single piece of it. But I know a lot about it and can corner someone at a party and bore them to death until they fake a phone call and scram. So, just something that you're like, maybe that's not like a passion, but like, oh, I know so much about this even. Because maybe like, there are all those weird kids who, like, growing up, you find out they know a bunch about like horseback riding or whatever, but they never let you know. I want something like that. I cannot stress enough how important this is, Sierra. This is a very important question. You gotta have something.
Turtles were kind of a thing.
Were
Turtles, yeah.
So are you?
I like turtles. Do I know as much as I used to know about turtles? No.
Well, this isn't time specific. I'll take turtles. So what was it about turtles that drew you to them? Because I had a similar affliction. I will admit.
Yeah, it started with sea turtles. They're just kind of majestic. I don't know. I love the ocean. I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Let me run this up your flagpole. I feel like every kid does this, or every kid our age probably did this.
Mm-hmm.
But and I lay this mostly at the Ninja Turtles and the Battletoads feet. Mm-hmm. But I feel like everybody at one point was like, you know what? The Ninja Turtles are a thing. I'm going to take my animal or my whatever and do our own thing. I had a trio of friends. I was the amphibians. I had a friend who was the reptiles, and the other friend was mammals. They were all just ripoffs of the Ninja Turtles, but we all chose our different phyla. Did you ever go through that? Like, you're like, oh, Ninja Turtles are cool, but bats. But you like turtles, so you probably just wanted to stick with the turtles.
I mean, we went with turtles. Me and my friends were little girls. We pretended to be mermaids all the time.
I did that.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's the thing with girls growing up. I felt bad for them, even as like a small child.
Dang.
Not
girls.
Just because from my point of view, because I was like a little boy and I could run around with tractors and no one gave a shit if I jumped off of a swing set or whatever. And I would look at girl toys and see the dresses and the crowns and the tiaras and the tea sets and be like, what a fucking ripoff. Holy shit. You got to play with that shit. I got a Tonka truck or whatever. Like, I got dinosaurs and like it. And then you'd play along every once in a while. I could get through about 15 seconds of a tea party. I was always like,
I don't think I ever had a tea party.
I'm glad.
We were always
they
camping
suck.
and boating and doing that kind of stuff. So that's what
that's how it should be. I
do.
think everybody should be out there, because all the kids I knew who had like little sisters or big sisters that had all their crappy, and why? Here's the thing: kids ruin everything. So why are we selling dolls with just acres of hair that they can tangle into literally everything around your house? Like,
so we could cut it.
Yeah, and
then color it with markers.
Yeah, I remember cutting my own hair, and I can't wait until Elliot will definitely cut his own hair at some point, and it will be hilarious. But since he doesn't have a doll, he can't practice first.
He has a doll.
But
I don't know if he has hair though.
Technically, does he?
I don't know. He's got a binky that is magnetic.
That's not a doll. That's a stuffed baby. Yeah, you're the topic.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were looking at sea turtles, did you move to like? Because I feel like everybody, especially when you're 12, you find a red-eared slider and you're like, oh shit, I really want one of those. Was that like a magical moment when you saw your first like water turtle?
So for one of my birthdays, my parents got me a box turtle. So I had him until I moved to Texas. And then when I moved to Texas, you could find red-eared sliders like in your sleep. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. So I had quite a few little turtle friends.
That's lucky. Like we always had tarantulas growing up.
Oh, hard pass.
Mm-mm.
You take what you can get. It's like that's the thing. You wonder why it's always a coincidence when you're like, oh, I can't believe my best friend lives so close. It's because they live so close to your best friend. So you just have to sort of adapt. So it's like, well, you want a pet? What we have are centipedes and tarantulas. Take your pick. Plus, they were free.
We went to a reptile show a few years ago and got his dad a tarantula for Christmas, and I was like, he can't stay in this house.
Nope, get it away from
I was
me.
like a little baby too.
Yeah.
Ooh, why?
Disgusting.
And you gotta watch them grow.
Mm-mm.
Plus, you get all those weird multi skins at every level.
Mm-mm.
No.
Have like a little tower of them.
Kayla
right.
says we've learned so much from turtles and all they tortoise.
Hmm. Thank you, Kayla. All right, Sierra, question 2. Give me a band that you can listen to exclusively for the rest of your life. Like everything else, say goodbye to it because I'm also going. Maybe it's like a chip that gets implanted into your brain, so you can't even hear like elevator music. It all gets transformed into the same artist or whatever. You got one. What is it?
Halsey.
Halsey. Why is that?
Because she's super versatile. So she has like crazy fun stuff, but she also has the lower side of things.
Mhm.
And she's hella relatable.
Hella.
From one bipolar chick to another.
I'm glad that you I like answers where people connect to it. Like you were immediately like bam. Where I don't know, there are so many people who stumble at so many questions. What I'm trying to say is so far so good. First one,
It was
it's
questionable.
it's touch and go. So far, we are up and running. But this is a pivotal one.
Uh-oh.
3 always makes it or breaks it. If you fuck this one up, it will be one hell of a nosedive to pull out of. So you got 4 limbs. You got to lose one right now. Pick one.
Which limb?
Yes.
My left arm.
Why?
Mm.
Why?
I don't know,
why?
because
Why
I
the
like
left
walking
arm?
and I use my right hand dominant. So fuck this limb.
I'll never. Here's the thing. And this is 100% of the time now. Now that I've surveyed so many people, I am 100% confident in this. There are only 2 types of people: the people who give up their non-dominant arm, or the people who give up their left leg. Now, the left leg people are thinking because a leg, so much less use. Like, let's say you want to, in late in life, you're like, I want to learn the clarinet. And you're like, oh no, just the one. Let's say you want to learn how to play guitar, or play a video game, or ever drive a manual car anymore.
Are you going to type all your notes?
Yeah.
People do lots of stuff.
Listen,
with no hand.
I get it.
Yeah.
I think I admire your desire to overcome adversity, but I still think that given the choice,
I'd rather run.
That's insane.
You can get those running feet.
Yeah, but no.
So you're. But here's my question: what are you running to or from? We've given up predation, and the chances of you like dropping a golf ball down a hill are very slim.
No, like recreationally, like therapeutically,
Like on a treadmill.
moving my body.
We've
Yeah.
had people go to the Olympics with space age titanium legs. You saying you're
Maybe-
better than them?
Maybe
huh?
I personally feel like I would be able to overcome the arm situation more than the leg situation.
Well, obviously, because
I
you
already
have
know how
nothing
to drive a
overcome.
manual, so
I don't know. I still now that I know there's only literally 2 people on the planet. The other half of you is so weird. I just don't get it.
maybe we don't get you either.
Burn.
You don't have to, because I'll have a titanium leg and be just as fast.
I'll have a robotic arm.
This isn't altered carbon. This is reality. I'll give you a hook if you want one, but you're not getting a robot arm.
When you put it that way, sign me up.
You want a hook?
Sure.
You know, here's the thing. I will grant you the hook for aesthetics, because I think someone smoking a cigarette out of a hook is badass and like super intimidating. Like just shades. Like imagine this. It's a smoky bar room, guy like 5 o'clock shadow, dark shades, hair sort of greased, sort of like the spit curl. And then from off frame comes a Hook holding a cigarette. And he's like, a fucking Hook? Hook Detective. Fox. Weeknight, 7:30. I think that might be a new show.
Do it.
Number 4. If I were to put your brain in the body of an animal for a long weekend, what animal would you like to be put into? So you're not going to be there forever. It's not foregone. You're not like, I'm going to miss Three Ninjas franchise. You're just going for 3 days.
Okay.
So what are we choosing?
I feel like I'm going back to sea turtle.
All right. So, but here's the thing. There are various flavors of sea turtle because I was a connoisseur at one point.
Mhm.
Is there a specific type? Because I know what I would be. Like if I were locked into sea turtles as a thing, I know exactly what I'm locked onto, but I want to hear what you think. Like a loggerhead, a green.
I think it would just be green. They're super pretty. I don't know. Leatherbacks are cool, but I feel like
hell to the
they
yeah,
look
they're
like-
cool.
they look like they're hard to move around. Like green sea turtles are just, I don't
Flowy.
know.
Look,
They're-
yeah,
what's the word? Graceful. I'm not
Yeah.
that. So
here's
maybe in the ocean.
I think your animal also, I think, Dick, is almost here's the corollary. If you have a game where you have a million different play styles, it's kind of like the animal you want to be. I would definitely go leatherback because I want to be a big ass bruiser of a tortoise or
Mhm.
rather a sea turtle. Because I also, I'm also a hammer in Monster Hunter. But some people, and I don't get these people either, they want to be small and fast. And I would rather just plow through every situation. But, I have a very low charisma that way. But I mean, a green I will take. But, no, okay, that's fine. Because I'm thinking, what if? And I'm overthinking it. I'm overthinking your situation for you. Because I'm like, how the hell are you going to survive that run from egg to beach? But we're putting you in an adult turtle, so forget
and it's
about
a
that.
weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
This is I fear now. Here's what might happen is you might discover that it's the eyesight of the turtle and not the brain of the turtle that makes them eat plastic, and you can just first day out like soda ring around your neck, and you just blant and back into your body, and that's a weekend wasted.
True.
But a sea turtle is good. Plus, it's kind of like flying, and so you get the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, flying without, and that's the thing with swimming. It's like flying with zero stakes. Because if you stop doing anything, nothing happens.
Yeah. So you could just breathe under there.
Yeah, I
yes,
like it.
please.
I like it. Okay, I like it. This is the Paramount one.
Mm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love Steven Seagal?
0.
All right, listen, hey, I am for polarity, and if you want to go 0, that's great. What unacceptable answers 4 through 6?
Yeah.
0
Okay.
might even give you an extra point for all the I don't know, that whole limb thing. I'm still every time someone says arm, it just blows me away.
Tomato.
I get it. I would like to I'm never going to get there, but if in a perfect world, this would be like a holodeck show. And I'd be like, bing, or maybe I'd be like Q, and I'd be like, now you have to spend the rest of the show with no arm. And you're also a sea turtle, so one
armless
flipper.
sea turtle?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll give you a sea turtle with one human arm for the whole show, and that'll be our holodeck show. All right, not bad. Every one of these I feel is it kind of like true crime. Each one's weird and different and unique, but also enjoyable
Mm-hmm.
for the wrong reasons usually. So let's get into it. True crime. This is something that spans millennia, because I feel like there was a time when I was really into it, and I feel like every year someone was posting an article. It's like, could this be America's first serial killer, or this Europe's first serial killer, or whatever? I'm like, at this point, the first doesn't matter. I don't like that's like who is that's nuts. I think everybody just sort of gravitates to the weirdness that they like, or if the character is compelling. I think if the murderer or the committer of the crime is compelling, even if their crime sucks, you'll enjoy them.
Mhm.
So I have some notes here. So case in point, there's a guy named James Hansey. He was the chief of police for like Buckeye, Ohio or something. And he was just like a lazy, shitty cop. And he got, it all started, or it came to a head when he's such a fucking idiot. Like he got an infected finger and did nothing about it. And so the doctor had to cut off most of it. And so he was off work and he had to give the mayor a doctor's note, which like how embarrassing. Like everybody hated him. And he goes on a police call, even though he's got a doctor's note and shouldn't be on duty, accidentally shoots the floor of this woman's trailer. Should not have gone to this house in the first place because the woman had Alzheimer's. And so it snowballed this investigation of like him letting people take parts out of junk cars and repossess stuff and like putting in fake hours for people. And at one point they're like, you know, your coworkers say you go home a lot. And he's like, they found you watching cops in your underwear the other day. And he's like, well, just because I'm watching cops in my underwear doesn't mean I got something in the mix. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Like, unless there's a criminal coming to steal your episode of Cops, what could you possibly have in the mix? And that's the thing. It's just like this pathetic. The crimes are so petty. He like let his brother-in-law steal a water pump, or like he fudged 16 hours a month for a person who only worked 8, whatever. But the fact that his ridiculous, and most of this stuff you can get online for free, like the interrogation stuff. That's what I recommend, because he's this big ball of dough with these tiny little stick arms, and his interrogators are like one of my favorites because it's so like petty. Like he's in charge of like 40 people in this small town, but he's such a weirdo. It's enjoyable. So give me one of your favorites, Sierra.
One of my favorite serial killers.
Or, you know, true crime didn't have to be necessarily a killer, but they're always, you know, a wealthy mind.
So it depends on which route you take, because serial killer wise, Israel Keys.
Israel Keys. Why that? I know. Okay, here's the thing. That name tickles my memory, but I cannot remember the details.
So he was elaborate. He played the long game. Like he would go visit somewhere, bury his murder kit, and then like go back home forever, fly somewhere, drive down to where he was, pick someone totally random. And it was just like, you could not trace him. He got away with a ton. He ended up killing himself before we even found out who all of them were, because he didn't want his son to think poorly of him.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you kind of fucked that up yourself, but
That's
okay.
That's the nuttiest shit about all of this, is like all the ones that get caught and make the news and go viral, or even the small ones that get caught. There's a bunch who don't.
Yeah.
Like there are people going to their grave who are potentially serial killers and or mass murderers.
Mhm.
And if you are just like literally on the ball, because that's I think a stereotype that people get from true crime is like, how could they be so stupid? Well, that's why you're hearing about it. You're hearing about it because they were stupid. The smart ones aren't getting caught.
Yeah.
Like, but and that's why it's also compelling. So like another, like speaking of stupid and like pointless, have you heard of Rocky Rambo?
I don't think so.
Boy, okay. So Rocky Rambo's full name is Rocky Rambo Waynam Cam.
What?
He's this little Asian kid who, I still have not ascertained a motive. I was looking up his shit all day, have no idea why he did this, but he went to the store. It was in Canada. Went to a Canadian Tire. He bought a knife and a hatchet and a baseball cap. Was caught on film, walking through the thing. Used his credit card. Killed an old couple, Richard and Diana Ma Jones. And in an insane way. Like he breaks in the back door and stabs, I think, her over 100 times and slits her throat, hatchet wounds all over the place, yada, yada, yada. And then just walks out the door. At one point they said that he stopped to eat a peach and drink a glass of milk, like as all this fucking carnage is happening. And he's just like this unassuming little, I think it was from Korea or Vietnam, I can't remember. Moral of the story is just this like little tiny squishy looking dude. And his interrogation shit's wild. So again, I don't know why he did it, the reason he got caught is because he literally left everything he bought, including the receipt, in the front lawn of the people he murdered. And so it literally, they were just like, oh, well, there's an X. Let's look up the serial number. Oh, this kid bought it. Well, let's go get him. And
But they saw it on the camera, him walking like at the store and buying it. So
Yeah.
it's like he didn't have a hat on, I don't think. I think he just walked up.
And that's the thing too. Like his interrogation footage is so shitty because he's just like, they're like, why'd you do it? Like they're showing him like photographs of the murdered people. And he's like, what is the bed going to be like? He wants to play video games. He wants to get out of there. He's such a, just stupid. I don't know why I don't know why. Like he wasn't related to these people. He didn't steal anything. He just murdered them and like ate some food and just fucked off.
It always trips me out when they like hang out in the house for God knows how long afterward and just like eat something and watch TV and literally take a crap and not flush it. So your DNA is right there. Good job.
So and that's the thing. Like all these horrific crimes are always done by the stupidest people. Because why? Nobody smart is going to do something like insanely overkill like that and just splatter DNA everywhere. Like, are you fucking kidding me? But whatever. I think that's why maybe that's the most satisfying part is like true crime. You get to know exactly who the bad guy is, exactly what they did, and exactly where they ended up. I love a good mystery, but only if it's solved in a satisfying way. I think true crime does that, or at least pop culture true crime, because by the time whatever the interrogation footage reaches the public domain, and the case is already out, like that shit happened, they got caught, and now they are literally in jail, and you're just hearing about it.
I have so many that I don't have closure on.
Don't get me wrong. There's a bunch out there, like.
And where there is like a crap ton of DNA or video and audio of the actual person, and we still can't get them. And it's like, who are you?
That's why it's so it really hinges upon like the place where the crime was committed.
Yeah.
Because there are those towns, like if it happens in a small town,
it's
you know they're going to get caught because everybody knows everybody. And the small town sheriff with the push broom mustache will be like, I'm gonna find out who did this, goddammit. And since there's 8 people, we'll figure it out eventually. But then again, like that pig farmer who just ground people up and fed him by the dozens.
What?
Yeah, there are so many like that. I don't know the finer points of his case. I just know that they had to like plow all the land like for 40 acres around his house to pull out all the bones.
Oh my God.
And all the remains and stuff. Woof. Yeah. So he was a weird one. What's another one of your favorites? Or an interesting one?
So this is one where I think the person is innocent, but are you familiar with Adnan Syed?
It sounds familiar, but oof.
So he was in Baltimore area, and this happened in like I think 1997-ish. But his high school girlfriend, who they were kind of on and off again, they were off at the time, she went missing, and then they found her like buried in the woods.
Okay.
Some random dude came across her when he went to go pee, and so like his story's totally sketch too, because he was literally just at his house and his job was like 4 minutes away. Why would you have to stop in between to go pee?
Yeah, people who find bodies, there's always it's never.
Yeah, but the whole case just seems super duper botched. And her boyfriend, obviously, like he's the one who got charged with it. There's literally no evidence that he did it.
Yeah,
and he's still in prison. And there's been like petitions and appeals and everything else, and it's just, I don't know, it's ridiculous. Like it's like the cops' pride will not let it. Like your pride is not worth this dude's life. Like he's been.
Yeah.
That's another aspect of it, is like there are the ones that are like cut and dry, and you're like, obviously, like that. Whew, glad we caught that guy finally.
Yeah.
And then there are the ones who are like, what if? But what also sucks about that is if like those guys you feel like are pretty strongly innocent, or at least there's reasonable doubt. Like,
Mhm.
I realize no one's gonna keep looking into that case, but like maybe every once in a while, make it like not necessarily like a cold case, but like a lukewarm case. Like maybe run the MO through something every now and again, because I feel like more times than I can count, you get these people exonerated, and they're like, "That was a fun 20 years, you fuckers."
Right.
And what do? Like, that's it. Like 20 years of your life gone. And
Right.
okay, so also speaking of that, it's one thing to be one of those guys who goes in for 20 years, gets exonerated, and they come back out, because you can come out and you would have opportunities, you would have a story to tell. Then there's bitches like Casey Anthony. What is her fucking life like moving forward? Like,
Trying not to get murdered everywhere she turns.
not only that, but like, how are you going to make a living? You're Casey Anthony.
Yeah, nobody wants you in their life.
You were like, yeah, I've been on a detective hunt for my daughter because the maid took it. Like, you're not the fucking Hardy Boys. You're not Nancy Drew. This is not a boxcar children mystery, you bitch.
Didn't she
You're
write a book?
fucking.
Did
Casey
Did you
Anthony?
write a book?
I don't think so.
Oh God,
I
I
don't know
hope
why.
not.
I thought a book came out about. I thought she wrote a book.
Google it, but I don't.
I also feel like I recently heard a rumor that she's pregnant, but I haven't heard anything since then.
There will
so Lord
always.
Jesus, I hope not.
I can't. That subset of scum culture that
Oh,
that
jeez.
all those like I get star fuckers because they have money and fame. I don't get murder fuckers
Oh my
because they will
God.
fucking kill you, asshole. They're fucking murderers.
Right.
Oh, he's so sweet on the inside. Well, yeah, when he doesn't have access to knives or people that can manipulate so he can fucking
Yeah,
kill you.
when you're just chilling in prison, like
Yeah.
pen pals over here.
Hey, I get to get drilled once a year by a man who murdered another man. Cool. Fuck that. Okay. So I've got so many I got a long list here.
Go for it.
So I've got so many good ones. I think one of the funnier ones, and only funny because of how stupid and like irrational her actions were, Leticia Staunch. So for those of you who not even know, Leticia Staunch killed her stepson Gannon, and she's the one who did the back facing interview. So she got married to some dude. The mom lived in Colorado. They lived somewhere else. She just apparently snapped or just didn't want to have a stepson anymore. Murdered him. Basically, a neighbor's CCTV saw her leave with Gannon and never come back with him, and he was never seen again. So it was like obvious, but they couldn't bring charges for one reason or another. And she was lambasted in social media, and everyone was like, "We know you did it. We know you fucking did it, you bitch." And she's like, "No, that's the thing I don't get. Like, if you are guilty and you know you're guilty, don't say you're about to go on a kiss my ass tour. Be humble. Shut the fuck up and go home. Get off Twitter. Quit being like, when we find Gannon, he's gonna tell you to tell me you're sorry." Like that. Okay, and all that craziness is then the cherry on the top is she's like, "I want to do an interview with the news." Her only stipulation, she would be facing away from the camera in the most awkward interview, like in a dirt field.
It was stupid.
What?
She's like, you see her, so you're shooting over her left shoulder to the reporter in front of her, and she's like, am I still in frame? Am I still in frame? And she's like, okay, so yeah, go ahead and ask me your questions. And like, just the hubris. He's like, what would you tell all the people on Facebook, all the people who are saying you're guilty? What would you say to them? And it's immediately like, I want to tell them that when Gannon comes back and he has to tell you to kiss my ass and blah, 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 blah. You're,
The audacity.
right. The people already think you're a murderer. Like, if you get accused, let's say you get accused of like stealing a hamburger and you run around the corner and like, oh, we lost him. And then you come around the building around the other side eating the very same hamburger and be like, don't know what you're talking about. I bought this up the road. Like, the balls just to be like, nuh-uh, like with the two snaps and a twist, like you're, and
like sit down.
And then her like sad sack face when she's in like court. And I don't know why sometimes when you go to court, you get to be, get to put in a suit, get nice clothes, they comb your hair, they shave your face, they do whatever. And sometimes they scrape you out from under a cat box, throw you in an orange jumpsuit, and just toss you like down a chute into the because she looked like fried hell. And I'm like, run a comb through your hair, bitch. Like, where's all the hubris now? Like, if Ganon were here, he'd tell you to run a comb through that shit.
Maybe
Ugh.
she wanted to look like that. Maybe she wanted people to feel bad for her.
I
true,
don't
the
feel
manipulation.
bad for people who let themselves go.
Mm.
It just means they have no commitment.
Ugh.
Also, one of the ones that I don't think is like super famous, but I want to bring this guy up because I fucking hate him. Michael Rafferty is another Canadian dude. So I think Canadian. Yeah, pretty much Canadian. He basic dude with a van type scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Dude gets a van, like brainwashes this girl named Terry Lynn McClintock to pull the classic puppy scheme. So they go, he parks down the street from a school. What's her name walks up, finds a nice little 8-year-old girl named Tori Safford. And she's like, oh, puppy. And obviously, no matter how many times you tell your kids not to follow the person who says they have a puppy, someone is going to do it. And bam, she is snatched. And needless to say, horrible things were done to her. And then she was murdered and dumped. And so the accomplice, she snaps. Like her story is grim, what she witnessed. And this is the guy, the opposite of Letitia Staunch. So that's why I'm bringing it up. He's the exact opposite side of the coin. They bring him in and he is like a stricken animal. He's like a wet, shaking fox. And meanwhile, this guy just brutally attacked and killed an 8-year-old and like dismembered her. It was crazy overkill. And he's just like sitting there under a blanket. And he's like, you guys think I'm a murderer? And I'm like, where's the bravado? You got the balls to kill a child, but you can't, like, not even, and like he wasn't even being in there. And the detective is like, hey, let's just talk about it. You know, the lowest stakes ever. And this piece of shit is like, and then he pulls this shit like, I'm hungry, but I don't want to eat because you're going to write that down in your notebook and you're going to say that he ate. And so he was showing, you know, no room. I hate this guy. Look up his stuff. His interrogation footage is online. And if it's the right type of hate, because it's justified righteous anger toward this guy, because you know he's going to jail. And the fact that these two detectives are in and out of the room being like, yeah, they call it the Jeff and Mutt, good cop, bad cop. So it's like, hey man, I'm on your side. Why don't you drink your tea? Have a bite of your donut. And then the one guy comes in, he's like, you motherfucker, you killed that 8-year-old girl and I'm going to see you hang. I love good cop, bad cop. I love it. Yeah. And it's always so, this also comes up. Are you aware of Stephanie Lazarus? I think I brought her up before.
Last time, yeah.
Yeah. So Stephanie Lazarus, it goes to show you, like, even cops can't withstand interrogation. Like, I'm sure she herself had done hundreds, if not thousands of interrogations toward criminals to get them to confess. But when you're sitting in front of good cop, bad cop there, everybody, it's always like a freak show. Because they act like cartoon characters. Stephanie Lazarus has got like big googly eyes that are bouncing out all over the place, and she's like, like she's constantly like being like she's a sock puppet in a breeze. and Stephen McDaniels, his interview, that man sits still for 9 hours. Are you aware of the Stephen McDaniels one?
I don't think so.
Oh, one of my favorites. Cliff's Notes. Crazy guy with huge hair, studying to be a lawyer, kills his next door neighbor who was also studying to be a lawyer. He was into a bunch of crazy shit like violent porn, and he collected swords and guns, and he would tape her. And he had panties cut out in a mask.
Masks.
And his interview, I love too, because it takes place in the South, and he goes, Steven! He just keeps screaming. Steve, what? You get your cell phone to fucking media, Steven. You got to talk all day, and you sit here and you can't talk to me, Steven. But he's like a zombie.
Yeah, dude was weird.
And you can't describe it. Like, you can say like, oh, it's eerie. But when you see him, and the detective is like, hey, put your hands up here on the table, and he's just like he's an insect creature. And he's like, Steven, look at me, boy. He's like, Steven. He goes, classic, like, fuck, man. Even like in the low res, low quality camera, it gives me chills when he
Right.
fucking does that, because you want his head to open up and see like a little bug alien in there driving that.
Men in
fucker.
Black style.
Yes. Just some weirdos like that. What's another good one? Another one of your favorites, or maybe even like, what's one that most people most people won't know about? Maybe one of the big famous ones. Like let's go broad strokes. Like Jack the Ripper is a big one. The Zodiac's a big one. BTK, I think everybody knows about. Of the like A-list, pop culture wise of these characters, who do you think is the most compelling for you? I'll even take all of like the Ed Geins. If you had like a documentary or a movie based on your life, I'll take that.
So I don't know. I don't know that this relates at all to your question, but last
let's-
time, did I talk about my aunt getting murdered?
No,
No? Okay.
that's definitely a story we should delve into though. So let's get into that. So first of all, how long ago?
It was, I want to say like 1995, 1996
Okay.
area.
All right.
So I was pretty little, but she was my great aunt, I guess.
Okay.
But there's actually a Lifetime movie about it. It's called Black Widower. But
okay, so this is starting to ring bells. So I think you may have told me this before, but I can't remember if it was on or off air, but keep going. It's
Okay.
good.
And so my aunt had married this guy. Everybody had the heebie-jeebs about him, was telling her like, don't do that. No, walk away. But that never works.
No.
So she marries him. Things are kind of not going well after a certain amount of time. She's talking about divorcing him. And he was what's the word for it? When you kill for money, like life insurance.
Oh yeah.
One of those little bitches.
Yeah, like the greedy sort of.
Mhm. So tell me why it takes in the end. I won't get to the end yet. We'll talk about my aunt first. Sorry. So they go to this Christmas party. I want to say they're at a hotel. They go to the party, they go back to the hotel, and the next morning he calls the police because she's unresponsive.
Uh-huh.
After investigation, like she had clearly been drugged and suffocated.
For sure.
And so like finally the cops like got off their asses and figured something out, because prior to my aunt, he had already killed 2 other wives and his mom.
What?
I don't get people like that.
Yeah. So he's in prison forever. Thank goodness. But
it seems like most of the time people get away with this just for like willful ignorance of the people around them. Like nobody either wants to burn the calories to be like, look into this, or to be like, because we all want to be like, no, I just like a weird feeling or whatever. But there are tons of Black Widows, Black Widowers, like Angels of Death, all the people who run
Angels
around
of Death are crazy.
like putting people down like cats and dogs, and like
all this life insurance, like your
Yeah.
mom and your wives, clearly there's life insurance for all of them that's going to go to you. You don't catch on to that.
That's the one thing. I think that's why the Angels of Death have like usually higher body counts, because they're doing it out of a warped, either like they're doing it because like to end the suffering, or they're whatever. However, they're doing
trusted.
it right. They're doing
Yeah.
they're doing it for a warped reason, but it's not for money.
Right. And the people are like, they don't look into it as much because
No.
the people are sick or whatever.
I just think like that's the laziest, like the shittiest type of murder. Like the Toyota Camry of murders is like murder for profit.
Yeah.
Because it's the least compelling. Like if somebody murders for revenge, or they murder for, because there are a million different reasons for murder. And I think the least interesting one is like, well, I just wanted to be rich.
Yeah.
Like if you're that shallow that all it takes is money for you to become a murderer, like that's not fun or compelling or interesting. It's nothing.
And you need millions of dollars. Like these were not small life insurance policies. You have
That's-
to keep going.
Yeah, and those are that's one thing. The dudes who get a bunch and keep going, but then there are the dudes who get like 20 grand a spouse.
Yeah.
and
that's-
they'll blow through like 6 of them.
yeah.
I-
Yeah. It's like how
Yeah. Like they'll blow through it like a sleeve of Oreos, and everyone around him is just like, well, that's some bad luck. 8 wives died? Woof.
Right.
8 of them, you say. Oh, and the last one flew into a helicopter blade. Oh,
And
man,
this-
it just
This motherfucker had the audacity to run for senator at some point.
Oh my
Like,
god.
sir.
oh god. Okay, so another one that I don't think I just barely learned about, and is another one that's also very confusing. So the case is called the Broken Arrow killings, and again, it just seems like senseless because these 2 brothers, Michael and Robert Bever, one was like 14, one was 17. And the 14-year-old, basically, it's a case of folie à deux
Hmm.
because the 17-year-old was psychotic and legitimately problematic,
Mhm.
where the 14-year-old just wanted to be like his big brother.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. And one night they just slaughtered their family.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's the thing. It's one of those ones where it was one of those ones where there was a bunch of planning. These 2 little motherfuckers planned the murder of their entire family. They're like,
Mhm.
we're going to do this. We're going to move down here. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh yeah, and didn't they have a bunch of siblings? Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
it was
they're
fucked
plan,
up.
and that's the thing. I can admire that the fact they at least had a plan, but it
Mhm.
stopped here. It was like murder family, get supplies, get guns, get car, drive to Washington, profit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what?
Yes.
Like that was the thing. And then when they were caught, it was just like
Oops.
we were going to Washington. They're like,
Yeah.
why? And they're like, it
I
was
don't
in the
know.
direct. And that's
Oh, yeah,
the kid has a lisp. So the interview you'll find was with the younger brother because the older brother stuff was sealed. Just matter of factly talking about how he murdered his family with this. So I ran the knife across my sister's throat, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's so surreal. But that's part of it. Is like everybody plans, but nobody realizes, and nothing is like in the movies, kids.
Yeah.
You want to kill
exactly.
someone, you can't throw a knife into their chest. They go "Ugh," and die.
Right.
And that's where the plan went ape shit. They like so low tech. Like the plan was the younger brother would lure one of the sisters to a
Mhm.
computer and be like, hey sis, check out this meme. And then
Yeah.
slit. And obviously that goes haywire. The daughter starts losing her shit. And then one after another, it's just this conga line of here comes the mom. Stab, 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 stab. Dad. All of them,
Yeah.
except for 2. The 2-year-old
Yep.
was saved simply because the cops knocked on the door as they were walking up the stairs to kill the kid.
What?
Yeah,
That was rough.
moments away. And the 13-year-old, the initial victim, survived despite having her throat cut.
Yeah.
And they released the photos they took because after the murders, the kids just took off. Like they knocked on the door and the kids ran into the forest and were like fugitive style covered in leaves and dirt and shit, smiling their fucking asses off. And in a perfect world, like the dogs, they were found by the dogs, by the way, and were torn up. But who's to say, like, dogs make a lot of noise. Let them go at it for another couple of minutes. Those kids, man. And that was the thing, just like for no reason.
Yeah.
The older brother's like, I hate it here. And the younger brother's like, all right.
I'm with you, dude. And I think with the younger brother, wasn't it kind of like a situation where it's like you're either with me or you're with
against me.
them,
Yeah, that's the
and
thing.
good luck,
Mhm.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing of folie à deux is like when one person is charismatic and the other one is impressionable, you've got a cocktail for a murdered family.
Well, and they had even mentioned it before because they tried to get one of the other sisters involved too, and she's like, no,
There
but
are
didn't think
so
it would
many.
actually happen.
I feel like there are so many warning signs. There are always these warning signs, and everyone just like blows past them.
Mhm.
Like I would like to think like if I started drawing, like doodling, and like every piece of paper in the house was like a dude with his brain splattered all over the place, someone might pick that up and be like, hey buddy, you need to talk.
Yeah.
But every time it's just like, well, he would bring home cats and cut them into little pieces, and we're like, it's a phase. And like he had the trifecta of psychopathy. He wet his
Uh-huh.
bed long into his teen years, but we just fucking pull your heads out of your asses. Moral of the story is it's always willful ignorance. I feel very, very few are the ones that get caught that are like that are really good at it. Every time that does happen, it's like a nugget of gold, because there is, as disgusting and as sick and as revolting as it is, there are a set of skills involved. And when a craftsman in their field, this grisly field, are caught, and you can see what an actual smart person does, I think that's the most interesting ones, because these stupid ones are obviously like, nah.
Exactly. You just want to smack on.
Yeah, you want a good page turner. You want a smart. Everybody wants a supervillain, but we all have to settle for, like, she got me mad and I punched her in her face and she fell down and died.
Oh my God. What about that one guy? God, I can't remember his name, but he killed, I think, his parents and his brother, and he was paying that, like,
Grant Amato. He's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So for those that don't know, Grant Amato fell in love with a Bulgarian cam whore, blew his family's entire fortune. Not only blew through his parents, but like his brother's money, all his money. He lost his job because he was stealing copious amounts of barbiturates and Oxycontin and shit. And I don't know why he thought this was the solution to his problem, but he just like blew his whole family away.
Familia's side is almost always financially driven.
But here's the thing. They were all broke. He had literally nothing to gain. Like, they couldn't give him any more money because it had all gone to this Bulgarian cam whore. So killing them doesn't get him anything. Like, it was just like, why? Like, there's nothing to gain. You have literally everything to lose now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Did he think they had, like, life insurance?
Maybe, but
sometimes it's almost like a pride thing too.
Yeah, a lot of,
like, you see a lot of, like, especially back in the day when it was primarily like the fathers bringing in the income, they fuck off their finances and are in the toilet, and then they just kill their whole family because they can't admit that they fucked up.
I can't believe how many stories are like that, where it's like, and they always take place in the 50s.
Yes.
Like 90% of 50s murders were because a dude lost his job, couldn't find another one, but had to pretend every day to leave the house for 8 hours. Then he finally snaps and has to murder his family. And that one guy did it and got away with it, like, what, twice? And they finally found him because America's Most Wanted made that clay bust of him. And like, this is what this sack of shit look like today. And his neighbor's like, oh my God, America's Most Wanted, that's my neighbor. And
did they get him though? I thought they didn't.
They finally did. They finally did.
Okay, cool.
They were like, hey, so you just like, and he was,
because that was like decades that he was.
That was the thing. Like, he killed his family, laid him out, covered him up, boarded up the house, told friends, family, work, and school, we're going to Hawaii because we've got a relative or whatever the story was. And then just fucked off, changed his name, found a new wife. And I feel like, I can't remember if he did it again, but he definitely did.
I recall that too. I think one of the creepiest parts, and if I'm remembering wrong, then that sucks. But it was a different case if so.
There are
but
so many.
He left like a radio on playing like classic music or something, or like the speaker system in the house. And then the ironic part was they had some kind of Tiffany chandelier or some shit, where if he would have just sold that, it would have more than covered their stuff.
And that was the thing. Like, and these guys just get driven to the end of their pitiful rope. But I every time culture shifts, murder changes.
Yeah, true.
and I don't think there's no more like murders for the sake of like appearances. Maybe like up in the upper echelon, people are like murdering each other because they don't want to seem foolish or whatever. But I don't think your average guy on the street is like, I just got to keep up this charade until I snap and kill my family. Because now it's just like, we all relax. Nobody wears suits anymore. Nobody wears top hats. You lose your job. There's no reason to kill your family. At least we've come that far. So another one, and this is the one we'd spoken about before the show. So I confused this guy with 3 separate guys. Todd Kohlhepp. His claim to fame is the Superbike murders. And this story is fucking ridiculous. So Todd Kohlhepp was like this insane character who is whatever. If you get into it if you want, because it's nuts and I can't go into all of it. But the reason I found out about him is the Superbike murder. So he went to this bike shop called the Superbike Shop, and he bought himself he bought himself a bike. Didn't know how to ride it, dumped it, blamed it on the dudes who sold it to him. They're like, "Why'd you sell me this?" He's basically like, "Why'd you sell me this bike? I didn't know how to ride it." And they're like, "So?" And you dumped it, so we're not taking it back. So he parked it somewhere and either has it stolen or it is stolen. Who knows? That's the least interesting part of this. But he's just like, yep, now's the day. So he walks in like right around the time they were closing, waited till the last customer left, and just blew everybody in the place away.
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets caught, it's not because of that. That happens and he gets scot-free. He's caught because he owns a bunch of land. And I don't even know how they found her, but so this transient couple shows up and they're like, "Hey, can we squat on your land if we do chores for you?" And he's like, "Sure." And then, as crazy people do, he formulated this narrative where he's like, "Oh, someone's trying to steal from me," shoots the dude in the head, takes the girl, chains her with a dog collar inside of a Connex, and makes her a sex slave for months. And but before all of that, it's like, oh, how were there any indications? When he was 12, he like kidnapped a babysitter, or I can't remember if she was a babysitter or not, but she was a girl in the street, in the neighborhood, like kidnapped her and tortured her for hours. And I don't know if it was a product of the time, but it was all swept under the rug, and it was like, boys will be boys, and he'll go to juvie. But like, that's a fucking warning sign. And he was able to just like do all these crazy things. But he was also one of these guys who I had to, one of these guys who lies but puts no commitment behind the lie. Like, let's say it's me and I have 40 acres of forest and I got a Connex back there with a sex slave chained up. I give dog food or whatever. And I'm found out and I get hauled into the police station. My first alibi wouldn't be like, yeah, that's our sex game. She likes to be chained up in a Connex. Are you fucking kidding? Like nobody has such a fetish that they're willing to be like locked up in the dark and starve themselves to death and go like without bathing. Like, but that's the thing. It was a lie with no conviction and completely unbelievable. And you could even see like in the interrogation footage, he's like, yeah, it's not that's not a thing. Obviously, like, nobody would want that. But one of those dudes where he's like, it was like a wizard did it. Like that's the conviction. Like if you get pulled in and like, what happened here, Todd? And he's like, a wizard did it. No, but seriously, I'm a murderer. And like, but then it just opens up like a clam. It's nuts. But and very, very few lady killers, but an interesting one is a young girl named Jennifer Pan. So she had these tiger parents. She was Vietnamese. She had tiger parents. And, so here's the exception that proves the rule. So back in the 50s, it was dudes getting laid off that would fake it until they killed their family. This was a girl who told her parents she was going to school and going to college to be a doctor, but blowing all the money on drugs and shit and banging a dude that her parents didn't approve of. So same situation, parts a little bit reversed. The parents finally had enough. They're like, the ultimatum is, come home and we will pay for your life again. You will go back to school or live with this boyfriend and you get nothing. And of course, murder happens. Like, but her story was insane because she calls 911 after she thinks everyone in the house is dead. And so it's like this fake panic where she's like, oh, help, my parents are dead. I got tied up and yada, yada. And she's like, almost like, and then like her father like comes to because he's not dead yet. And he's like, ah! And then she starts panicking for real. Oh. And it's like, what the fuck? And so he runs out into the street and he's like, ah, waving his hands, blood shooting out of his neck and shit. And she starts really panicking because she's like, yeah, Dad, I'm on the phone with the 911. And it's one of those cases where Dad goes to the hospital. He wakes up, knows everything, obviously, saw the whole thing. Story does not match the daughter's, but the cops are like, hey, play like you're amnesiac for a little bit. And then it's like, well, I was tied up. I'm like, how'd you get to the phone? She was like, I was, we also didn't find any rope or string or whatever. And it's like, did you kill your parents? And she's like, no, but yeah, you fucking did. So yeah, I guess maybe now it's moved from the status killing has moved from like uptight white business guy to like put upon child.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe because that's Grant Amato's story too. Because he kept being
lately.
like, I need money for my streaming career. Like, could you imagine? Like, if Elliot later comes to me and he's like, can I have money so I can be a Twitch streamer? I'd be like, no. Fucking idiot. No, of course you can't have money. But his parents are like, okay, yeah, $10,000 to be a Twitch streamer. Like, so that's the thing. A lot of the times, the people who get killed were basically paving the way for their own murder.
Well, and I think you're right. Like a lot of times now and today, it is like spoiled ass kids killing their parents because they can't listen. Like they can't handle
throw
being
money
told
at
no.
it.
Yeah.
Or you want to rebel, and it's like
no, you cannot date a 45-year-old. Sorry. Well, then fine. I'm just gonna kill you.
Yeah, that's another thing that like runs through all these weird true crime stories is like mismatch ages in like relationships where it's always like, oh yeah, this guy went out and married a 14-year-old, and then I guess like if you're going to go ahead and like give into moral degeneracy, do it all, I suppose. Like fuck it, like you're a murderer. It's not like anyone's gonna look down more upon you. like if Charles Manson's like, I also like him young, you wouldn't be like, oh, like
surprise.
Yeah, like yeah, whoop-de shit. Okay, yeah, great. Thanks, Charles. Thanks for the update. I think we know enough about you. Whatever. But are you familiar with the Michael Dunn case?
No.
So his is like a crime of drunken idiocy.
Oh no.
It's like he had literally nothing to gain and everything to lose. This dude went to his kid's wedding, got shit-faced, drive back to his hotel. His fiance is like, stop at the QT, I want a bottle of wine. He goes, okay. And so they drive in. These 3 or 4 black kids are sitting in this Durango, their music's loud, and fucking tipsy ass Michael Dunn's like, how can you turn off the music? And they're like, whoop, and they turn it down. And then they turn it back up, and that gave him reason to get out of his car with his gun and shoot into their car. Like the first time I think was like 5 or 6 times. And then they are skidding out of the parking lot, and he fires like 10 shots total. So he shoots at them as they're leaving too. And then his fiance comes out of the gas station. They get in the car. They go back to their hotel room. They order a pizza. They go to sleep. They drive home the next day. And it is as he is talking to a friend who is in law enforcement, who is at that moment being like, yeah, you should probably turn yourself in, that the police come knocking. And they're like, hey, we got some questions. And his interrogation, I think, is one of the better ones too, because he's just like, he's convinced himself he's in the right. So
did he kill any of them? He
killed 2 of them, 1 or 2 of them. He definitely killed 1 because he bled out like in 40 seconds, dead. And so it's these 2 detectives, and he's like, hey, so you shot some kid yesterday? And he's like, oh yeah, so it was a weird day. And he's like, I didn't want to I don't want to be, cause you guys any trouble. Like he thinks this is no big deal.
Sir.
And that's like, it takes them the entire interrogation, which is like 2 hours, before like the last 2 minutes where he's like, am I in trouble here? Because the whole time he's like, his whole story is also, the reason he opened fire is because he saw a shotgun. At first it was a barrel, then it was a shotgun, and then it was downgraded to a stick, and then it was downgraded to something.
I saw something in the car.
And that's the thing. Like there's one of the detectives, he's just like, he gives 0 fucks for Michael Dunn. And so when Michael's like, I'm a little tired because I had trouble sleeping last night. Like, this is how he sounds. He's like, I don't want to, I didn't know if they were going to get out of the car and kill me or bite my ear off or whatever. He says that.
What?
And one of the detectives he's talking to is black. And he's like, I didn't know if these kids are going to get out and jump me or bite my ear off. And the black detective is like, you did not know whether they were coming out to kill you or whether they were going to bite your ear off. I find that second one highly unlikely, sir. And he's like, I don't know. I saw a stick and which it might have been a barrel. And I heard someone say, fuck you, bitch. I'm going to kill that bitch. And he's such a fucking idiot. And I'm glad this is like the greatest part of the story is like from the time they picked him up, like the next day, literally, never saw the light of day again. Like he was in jail and still is in jail to this day. He wasn't one of these guys who's like, you know, I don't know. I shot a bunch of kids because they had loud music. And then he just walks for a few months or a few years.
Mhm.
Those are always so frustrating.
Right.
This guy, it was like racist drunk guy pulls into a parking lot, shoots a kid. And like in 48 hours, he's caught and the end.
Well,
That's a
and
win.
so did his fiance just like meh? Like, did she not know that this went down and was like, all right, let's go order a pizza and like drive home?
That's the thing. Is like she knew what had happened, and when they interview her, like the prosecutor really hammered her because his whole story was like, you know, they had a gun and I saw a gun or a stick or a barrel or a thing, and so the prosecution when they were interviewing his fiance, they're like, you know, on the 45-minute drive back to the hotel, did he ever mention a gun? She goes, no. She goes, when you ordered the pizza from Domino's that night, did he mention that they're seeing a gun? She goes, no. She's like, on the 2.5-hour drive back, blah, 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 blah. The whole time, never mentioned a gun, never mentioned a gun. Yeah, it was a clear-cut case of like drunk dude who got some nuts because he had a few Jack and Cokes, pop, pop, pop. Needn't have been, but for some reason, like second most boring in runner up to like financially based crimes, the ones that just like where a dude's drunk and he just like lives out a racist or whatever the target is, where he's just like, I'm drunk and look, gun in the glove compartment, pow, 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 pow. What the fuck were you thinking?
It's weird.
And when it happens at like 50 plus, like you were able to make it half a century without murdering someone, and then on the night of your son's wedding you're like, tonight's the night, what the fuck? You were able to keep it on lock for so long. Why it just those are the type of assholes I hate. Like I get the serial killers because they're obviously nuts and there's a pattern of nuts and you can be like, whoa, they were nuts from start to finish. But when you just have a guy be like, I turn down your mute, bam, bam, bam. What the fuck? So, but again, the only reason I bring him up is because he was like caught so quickly and it was so satisfying. Like if it was one of those guys where I just saw one of these dudes who killed many wives, and he was just like skating for 20 years. Everybody knew he was a murderer. The police, he went on, the media. He was like, everyone's like, why'd you kill your wife? Why'd you kill your wife? And I was like, I didn't. I'm not, you can't prove it. You can't prove it. And then eventually it happens. It's just like, why did it take 20 fucking years? Because by then they're 70 and like, you're not getting out until 2072. Well, they're going to be dead in 6 months. Who gives a like,
Right.
why the 10-year waiting period? That's why I don't get, like with some things, sure. Like they don't have the body or they don't have the whatever. In this one, they dug up all the old bodies. They're like, nope, these are no longer suicides. They're homicides. We found the broken hyoid bones. We found bruising. We found this, we found that. And even then it takes another 5 years. So you can't blame these dudes for having hubris and just being like, kiss my ass. Because, when you skate for 20 years, I'm sure you feel invincible.
Oh yeah.
After a certain point, you must feel bulletproof.
How long did because Ed Kemper, he killed what? He killed like 7 women or something like that.
Something.
Like how long was the span of like when he stopped killing that he got caught? Or did he get caught because of the last person that
Well, because his last one was his mom and
His
her
mom's friend.
Yeah.
But his grandma was like way before that.
Right.
So there was
Yeah,
a pretty long span. And he did go to jail for the grandma, but it didn't last very long.
But he's one of those dudes who does it like as a juvenile And so he
Mm-hmm.
gets like this double act career,
Yeah.
which obviously was going to happen. But he was one of those dudes where I think, everybody knew he had done it. Like they found the bodies, like he left his mom all chopped up in her bed and everything. And they knew it was him. So eventually he just like called from a payphone.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey guys, it's me. Like, I'll see you in 20 or whatever."
Mhm.
Oh, he
Yeah.
he went and was like, okay,
Yeah.
the
Well,
jig is up.
He knew that he was just gonna keep killing people. He couldn't stop himself. So he's like, okay, well, fuck this bitch because she's treated me like shit my whole life, and
Yeah.
I'm out.
Kemper's a weird one because he's smart enough to have kept on going,
Mhm.
but
He knew his limit.
no, not that even. Like his morals were warped in such a way that he knew he had a problem. He couldn't contain it, but he did have a breaking point.
Yeah.
There are
Mhm.
dudes out there who, if not caught, would still be doing it.
Right.
He had a limit. He had a hard out. And I think once that cork popped when he killed his mom
Mhm.
and did all those weird things to her, look that up. Good.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. But look it
Yeah,
up.
weird. But I think once like that was the the finger in his dike, and then once that was out, boom, all that pressure is gone. He doesn't have, because in all of his interviews, he is Norman Bates. He's like, my mom was a lush. She would bang all these dudes, and she was very mean, and she hated men. Like, there was no way Ed Kemper wasn't coming out the way he did.
100%.
Like, they say that Psycho is based off Ed Gein, but it's almost exactly like Ed Kemper, because it's the same overbearing mom. He does the same sort of weird murder, same sort of murder victims. Because in the Bates Motel, I'm sure it's just this flowing of transients and whatever, and that's what Kemper did. He just picked up people on the side of the road.
Mhm.
Wait,
But-
was it in like a college town or something?
Yeah, it was San
Yeah.
Jose, because his mom worked for San Jose State, and that's where he would go. And that was part of his thing. He's like, the irony was, he's like, I hated my mom, but she worked at a place that guaranteed a fresh, like, never-ending supply of victims.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had the like parking sticker on the car,
Yeah.
so he looked like a college student. That he was like trusted.
I can't believe. I think Ed Kemper is like a diamond in a rough that is being struck by lightning inside of a bottle, because he had no reason to be like so candid.
Mhm.
And the fact that he was so open about like his hunting techniques, where he would
Right.
do like the look at the watch, and he had it down to a science. I appreciate that, because again, nobody will tell you their motives and methods. They'll just be like, yeah, I did it and fuck you, and I'm not telling you where the last body is, and they'll drag it out.
Mhm.
You don't get those cool as a cucumber guys who can be like, yep, did all these murders, I cut my mom's head off, blah, 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 blah. I just had a rough life, and that's what happened.
Do you think if he didn't kill his mom, he would have gotten caught?
No, because that's what set him
I would
off.
say it would have taken longer, and
Yeah.
that was really like his. I don't know the best word for it, but like she was the reason.
Yeah.
Right.
So once, like you said, once that was gone, it's like,
There was
cool, I'm
nothing else.
done.
Yeah, she was his Joker. She was his nemesis.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like he was able to take out that anger on these college kids and all these people outside of his sphere of influence, because it was like, who knew? But when you kill at home, that's the end, man. Like that's it. Like that is your denouement. Like you cannot you can't kill your mom in her bed, and then because like people at the college would come looking for her, like she still had the job there or whatever, like her friend, and you see what happened. The friend comes over, she gets murdered too.
Yeah, and he didn't want to do that. It sucks.
But and that's the thing too, like he's got this like diabolical logic where you see the through line. You're like,
Mhm.
I didn't want this, so this had to happen. And you're like, yeah, like as cold and calculating as it is,
He's a
completely
genius.
relatable. Because if you're in that
Yeah.
situation, you're like, well, I've just murdered someone and somebody has walked in on it. This is a farce now, and I've got to, conga line of murders like the Broken Arrows or whatever.
Well, so so the friend shows up and he didn't want to kill her, but he did. But did he at that point know that he was gonna confess, or and then I mean he killed her anyway because he could have just confessed and not killed her because
I think he probably, no matter how logical you are, and Ed Camper is probably like a cornerstone of that element, you still panic.
Mhm.
Well, and I think he still had things he wanted to do.
Yeah, but you still, no matter how you feel about things, and you may recognize the futility of something, the innate instinct of self-preservation will make you run.
Yeah.
Because every time that you get one of those dudes who they get caught, and they're like, I knew it was gonna happen, but you gotta try. Like,
yeah. Was he the one who had never had sex with a living person?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Because he was definitely
that's the thing. I don't know.
a necrophile, but
yeah, he definitely was. But all of it, all the stuff that sticks out of my memory about him is the that story where he took those two girls out, and like there's so many weird things, but none of that like really, because with Ed Kemper, you mostly stick on his eloquence and his intelligence, and you forget about the terrible stuff he's done because he sits down in front of you, he crosses his legs like he's in a Geraldo Rivera interview.
He's so cunning.
Yeah, he crosses his fingers. He's like, so yeah, back in the 70s, I was murdering people, and it was a thing, and it was one of the most interesting characters.
Yeah, he's definitely super interesting, and he's just one that sticks out to me. I don't remember a lot of these people's names, but and that series, they did a really good job.
I think part of it is simply because most people aren't as candid as him and don't give you as much insight.
Yeah, exactly.
Because on when profiling and everything came about, you can say, well, based on these traits, we can say this character has these sort of indicators and possibly a white man doing this, and this. And you can say, well, blah, 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 but you don't know why. Everybody's why is different. You can say the how, and you can say like, it's probably this type of person, but you'll never know. And I think that's what everybody wants to know, but 9 times out of 10, they take it to the grave. And if they are candid, they're like, they're super chatty, but they don't want to talk about the murderers. And so that's why Ed Kemper is in that sweet spot of like, tell us more, because there are other weirdos out there like you.
And profilers are crazy. Like, they can be spot on sometime. I forget what I was listening to the other day, but the person had a lisp and they guessed it down to the lisp. And it's like, how do you know they had a lisp just from this crime scene? Like, what do you mean?
When I was in my 20s and I started getting deep into true crime, I read Douglas, what's his name? The guy who Mindhunter is based on.
Oh, yeah.
Douglas something or other. His book, the actual book Mindhunter, when it was like the non-fictionalized version of his time at Quantico and the way to profile people. And I blew through all of his books, and I got pretty good at profiling people.
Yeah. To
the point where like I would work with people and I'm like, let me try this on you. And I say, based on what I'm seeing here, blah, blah, blah. I was able to tell this girl that I knew nothing about her. I just knew her from work, sort of casually. And I said, let me tell you about yourself. I say, you're an only child. You're from back east. Your parents have a basement here, which is weird because Arizona people don't have basements, and blah, 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 blah. And she goes, yeah. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. The basement thing, I kind of pulled out of my ass, but it worked. Like, and it's such a fun skill, but unless you keep on top of it, it shrivels very quickly because it's so like calorically intensive, because you have to watch literally everything a person does.
Sherlock Holmes style.
Yeah. And I would rather just phone it in and tell people what dinosaurs they are. Like, that's so much easier than guessing whether or not you have your parents are divorced or not, or whatever. I mean, it can't be done. Given the time, I could do it again, but holy shit, who has the time? Plus, it weirds people out when you tell them about themselves.
I mean, I felt seen with the dinosaur.
Yeah, so that's the type, that's the area that people want. They want to be like, I want to know what dinosaur I am. I don't want you to know about my parents and siblings and what handed I am without looking. So yeah, that was the reason I gave it up, because it weirded people out. Let me look at my list because I think we've hit all the big ones, but
I have like 75 in mind. No.
give me another one that you know a lot about. Because I think maybe we can overlap on another one like Kemper.
So what you were talking about Folie à Deux.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with the Poupon sisters? Don't speak French, so that probably was not correct.
Oh, they're not the crazy twins that.
Oh no, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, those. That's a crazy case of Folie à Deux. But no, I'm not sure about these sisters.
So
that you're
they're
referring to.
sisters in France. I want to say it was like early 1900s, maybe even earlier than that. But they were their childhood was trash, which that's typically how it goes.
That's
like that goes without saying.
It's hardly ever. There are all those times, but it's hardly ever where like they went to school, went to high school, captain of the football team. One day, just snapped and murdered his family.
Right.
It's always a very tragic.
Yeah. Well, and that's when the conversation of nature versus nurture comes in, and you look at those things, it's like, sure, some people are born just cracked, but
right. I want if there's people in the typing square, I want your opinion, because I think you can't say, is it nature versus nurture? Because each person, it is definitely either nature or nurture. I don't think it's both all the time. I think most people, like 80% of it is one thing.
Yeah.
Like if you come from a fucked up house where you're dirt poor and you're got an abusive family life and or extended family and or friends and or abuse in other places, whatever, you are more likely to be a weirdo and a criminal. But that could be just as easily done with a car accident fucking with your brain, or having a chemical imbalance, or the late onset schizophrenia that sometimes happens. And those cases are interesting too, because it'll just be like, they'll get into that spot in their 20s when that sort of stuff strikes. And
yeah, I think it's like a perfect storm situation.
Yeah. And not to say that both can't happen, but every time I watch these documentaries, they fall into one of two categories. It's usually a tragic childhood and growing up, and it's sometimes a mental illness that starts early or late or is acute and onset. But there's very few ones have both, but those are the ones that are crazy.
Well, even the ones where they had a shitty childhood and whatever, it's like tons of people have shitty childhoods, but you have to have that one little thing that's not quite right to push you over that edge.
And that's the wild card is humanity, because everybody has a different breaking point. And that's why people will be like, well, I had a tough childhood. There are people all over the planet having tough childhoods about murder. Obviously, motherfucker, like the murderers are on the outliers. Otherwise, we wouldn't be as successful as we are.
Right.
We're not saying that everybody who has, obviously, there's millions of us.
Yeah.
If everybody who had a fucked up childhood was a murderer, there'd be like 12 people. So obviously, but that is the thing. Everybody wants to be like, well, it's not their fault, but it is. I think that's another thing that weirds you out when you get into defense when in regards to true crime, because people will come up with these defenses where it's like, it's no longer a case of did you do it or didn't you? You obviously did it. You're batshit insane. And our defense is this. That's such a weird position to be in, I feel, because like when Stephen McDaniels is in his suit with his crazy eyes and his troll hair, and he's got to be like, obviously the evidence is overwhelming, but everybody wants to go through the charade because there's a 1% chance that you might be the next Casey Anthony.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, I'm going to plead not guilty, even though you have my face like imprinted on theirs.
Everybody's a gambler under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think forced into a corner, and your last chance is rolling the dice.
All or nothing.
And it's 100-sided, you're still gonna roll it because there's a 1 in 100 chance. But like so let's say, okay, so another guy like that is the Russell Williams case. You know about him?
It sounds familiar.
Colonel Russell Williams was a Canadian Air Force guy, and he was essentially like an underwear collector, and he would break into women's houses, and he eventually, always the progression of like breaking in, stealing underwear, breaking in while they're home to watch them sleep, and blah blah blah, rape and murder.
Mhm.
And he was one of these guys who forced to deal with all the evidence. And this interrogator was great. He's like, so here's what we got. We got your tire tracks at the murder spot. We got your footprints at the murder spot. We've got your DNA at the murder spot. We've got blah, 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 blah. And so, it takes him a while to sort of break down. And he's one of these guys who chews gum like concrete. And he's just, so finally he gets to that point where he's like, so what do we do, Russell? Where do we go from here? And he's like, my whole thing is how is my wife going to react? And I'm like, you're a fucking murderer, dude.
Like, you didn't think about that prior to?
but the thing is, this guy had a warped sense of ethics and morals, because he was like, all right, no trial, just please, let's make this go away. Those dudes I have the most respect for on a scale, obviously.
Right.
But the dudes who are like, yeah, obviously it's overwhelming. I did it. I can't tell you why I did it, but here's how. Let's get this over with. And
not dragging it out for the survivors, because this tears families apart having to go through those trials.
That's the worst part of it. Like, not only have you murdered somebody, but now their life is yours, essentially, because all the people who have had their kids killed or parents killed or whatever, and have to go to these parole hearings year after year or decade after decade. And it's just like, I can't imagine. Just imagine someone walking into your house and slitting open your guts, and just like, you have this huge open wound. They're like, all right, see you later. And then, you're allowed to heal. You move on. You kind of get past it. And then they knock, 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 slit again and again. Just the same wound getting ripped open.
Yep.
That is so fucked.
Yep.
But there's no other way around it, because, we've all seen those ones where the family are like, we've been going for 25 years and we're pretty sure he's going to stay. And that's when they get the fucking dude to walk or whatever. And it's just, there's no winners except for the murderers, because not only do they get to live out their sick fantasies, not only do they get to fuck over an entire family and possibly lineage, because a murder in a family affects you forever. You'll always have that, however you want to look at it, it's a part of your family tapestry now. And that's fucked. And so that's another thing that true crime people, I think, always have to deal with, is like corporal punishment. Because when you get into it, some of these dudes will make you think like, yeah, just don't even do the lethal injection. Just like put them on a slab and roll them into the cremation thing and just let them burn alive for 20 minutes. And then they're the other guys who are so like, they have that heel turn and find value, find compassion, or find value in themselves. And you feel redemption, and you're like, yeah, this guy obviously shouldn't be let out, but probably shouldn't have to go through the crapshoot of like lethal injection, or because that gets dicey too. All the ways that people get killed ethically are, if you look into that, that's fucked too. Oh my God. But yeah, that's it, guys. There's so many things to go into, and all of these cases, you almost feel like a kid with baseball cards, because each one of them has their own stats, and each one of them has their own peculiarities, and you're like, need got, haven't seen this one yet. You like want to trade stories. Every time you find another true crime person, you trade, because everybody's niche is different. Like, if you're into like the serial killers, or maybe you're into like, the Black Widowers or the Angels of Death, or all these different niches, you get to be like, oh yeah, here's my thing. I'm into Don Mattingly's rookie card or whatever. and it's not the strangest, but one of the more strange things you can relate to someone out in the wild about, because you have to preface everything with like, Now, I'm not a weirdo, but
Right.
I'm not a weirdo, but when he decapitated that yada yada, I'm not a weirdo, but when she was scissored in half and each half of her body flew in separate directions, I'm not a weirdo. Well, we're all weirdos. Boy, oh boy. Sierra, thanks for coming back on the show. I really appreciate it because true crime is like I said, one of those things it's not water cooler talk. So when you find someone who wants to jump into it with you,
right. I
it's-
feel like you
it's-
could just talk forever.
yeah, like it's not like this is not. Oh, did you see The Office? This is like, oh man, did you remember when Ed Kemper? Blah 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 blah. Like that. Maybe it's almost akin to like comic books because also because like they all have stories. And they're all characters and they're all weirdos. And some of them think they have superpowers and some of them are all like legitimate super villains. And others are like Archie comics, except with murder. It's weird. So once again, Sierra, thank you for coming on. Everybody in the chat and the typing square, thank you for coming.
Yay.
As always, I got to push the Popeye stuff. Be like Popeye, the merch in our store. Since it's Friday, I'm not going to plug much. It's Flamingo Friday. Hope you wore your flamingos. Sierra, do you want to give any honorary staff recommendations? I always like to throw that out there because maybe, in times of crisis, people are finding new and interesting things. So is there something that you found you're enjoying that you want people to listen to or see or?
As far as like true crime podcasts go right now, I just started listening to one called Morbid. And it's kind of one of those like more comedy true crime, like lighthearted,
Yeah.
but still gets into some shit. And they have a bunch of episodes, so it's one you could binge.
There's one that I know only by reputation, and I at this point am only not getting into it because their back catalog at this point is in the hundreds of episodes.
Mhm.
But My Favorite Murder,
Oh,
I've heard a lot about. And not only that, but I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but one of the women hosting that show was one of the cast members of Mr. Show, one of my favorite all-time sketch comedy shows.
Kilgariff.
Yes, Karen Kilgariff. So funny.
Yeah, she's great.
It's real easy to get bogged down in the depressing shit around true crime. And I'll tell you this, it takes a deft hand to do it right. I don't think I do it
Mhm.
right, but there are people out there that do. And I think she's one of those people because I've
Oh,
caught
for
snatches of
sure.
it here and there.
That's one that I definitely binge and have now run out of episodes and have to wait every week.
And now that's the thing. Now that I'm getting back into like niche artsy stuff, I have no time anymore.
Yeah,
'Cause
well,
I'm
all I
doing-
do is drive.
Yeah, I'm doing my own niche arty shit. So maybe I'm what some pretentious tosser is talking about.
There you go.
But I want to be that pretentious guy talking about My Favorite Murder or all these other things. But that's the problem. When everybody's putting out professional quality material, it's like, where do you fucking go? You got 24 hours. You got to sleep for some of that shit. All right, guys. So once again, this has been Hangout in True Crime Part 2. Once again, don't look for Part 1. It doesn't exist.
we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it.
Never happened.
It's a cold case. No one's opening it though. I don't know if this is your thing, but I want to touch on this before we go. Are you an SVU fan, and are you excited for Stabler coming back?
Didn't know that was a thing. I haven't watched it in a while, but definitely used to be.
So I'm of two minds about it. I want Stabler to come back, but I realize he is now too old to beat up Skells. So I get that they moved him to I think he's like the financial crimes division. Him and Olivia are teaming back up.
Mhm.
So excited.
I hope he punches someone, but we'll see. I'm excited though, but
I
not
hope
for
to see
another
him with
year.
his shirt off.
Oh.
That'd be cool.
Follow him on Twitter. He's always posting shirtless selfies. I feel like,
All right.
and it's if you follow Christopher Maloney, it's a weird experience because it's just half of the feed is people requesting shirtless selfies, and then the fulfilling of the request for shirtless selfies. It's weird times we live in, guys. It's 2020. All right, guys. So once again, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. Buy some Popeye merch. Support the animals, and we will see you next time here on. Name of the show is going to change soon, so I'm not even going to say it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
It is.
Yeah, I'm changing it.
So what?